We are in the Jewish cemetery in Southampton's General Cemetery, and the fact that it opened within a few years of the General Cemetery in the early 1850s, a reflection of the integration of the Jews of Southampton into the civic life and the commercial life of this thriving Victorian port. So the Jews get their own area, and from the 1850s they are burying their dead here rather than having to go all the way to Portsmouth, which was a very difficult journey in those days. And over the last 150, 170 years, that has been very much the case, that these tombstones tell the story of Southampton's own history, but also of migration into it and out to it as transmigrants. If we look at this very, very small and modest tombstone here, a very, very sad story and a very unusual tombstone. This is the tombstone of Boris Selesnov, who died just aged 2 years of a common infection, which would today be treated with a course of antibiotics. He was born and died in Atlantic Park Hostel, what is now Southampton Airport. So his parents were transmigrants, refused entry to America, turned back to Southampton, and his short life is spent in Southampton. Tombstone probably would have been paid by the local Jewish community. It's a modest one. What is unusual about this is that although it's missing, we can see the missing photograph. And this is not Jewish tradition, but it is very much East European or Ukrainian tradition. So there would have been a photograph in there commemorating by his parents, who were just poor peasants. They came from the Ukraine, escaping famine, persecution, civil war, and very vicious persecution. So these are very poor refugees who temporarily made their lives in Southampton, and sadly, in the case of Boris, lived here and died here in the camp. So we have many different levels of a Jewish community buried here. We have, for example, the Emanuel family, who dominated the political landscape of Southampton from the 1860s onwards. Southampton was the first town in Britain to have a Jewish councillor in the 1830s, when in fact this should not have happened. The Jews were not fully emancipated, given full political rights at this point. But the Emanuel family, from poor origins in Portsmouth, come to Southampton and then establish themselves as jewellers and as very, very exquisite silver makers, in fact to royal appointment. Here we have the tombstone of Frederick Emanuel, who died in the First World War following service. And he is the son of Michael Emanuel, the last Emanuel in terms of being mayor of the town. And then near to them, we have another person who was in Atlantic Park. And in this case, we can see not only the tombstone, but the ghostly photograph that survives to this day. And then a little bit ahead of us, we have another layer of this community, East European Jews, as opposed to the German Jews who first arrived here in the 1820s and 1830s. From the 1860s onwards, Russian Jews, East European Jews, are coming to the town. And by the 1890s, 1900s, their number, either as transmigrants or people settling in the town, is growing all the time. And slowly, they take over the communal structure of the synagogue and all of its institutions linked to it. Here we have the tombstone of Israel Millet, one of a huge number of siblings who came to Southampton, having travelled the world, but starting off in Galicia, a very poor part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Eastern Europe. And they tried their luck in various places, in France, in Ireland, in London, and then finally in Southampton, where they set up small businesses, lock-up businesses, in the sailor town part of the port, in a notorious street, Canal Walk, a street notorious for its prostitution, for its crime, for its drunkenness, but also for its poor shops. And in there they set up what was first of all an army surplus following the Boer War at the turn of the 20th century, and then moving as the 20th century progressed into what was the largest outdoor clothing and camping company in Britain.